I'm going to start. Curtis, can you shut the door, Rob?
I saw him outside.
Charlie, are you ready? Good evening. My name is Susan Stevenson. Forgive my voice, I'm sorry. I'm the chair of the Board of Architectural Review and Historic Preservation of the Village of Southampton. I'm calling this meeting on September 23rd to order. Do I have a motion to open?
I make a motion that we open this meeting of the Board of Architectural Review and Historic Preservation on September 23rd.
Second. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Before we begin, I would like to make it clear that I expect everyone, the board and the public, to act and speak with civility during this meeting. Anyone who wants to speak should sign in at the front desk on this lined piece of paper. So we have a correct spelling of your name. No one may speak until they are recognized by the chair. If you're presenting materials, please place them on the front desk facing us so that our videographer can pick them up for the record. Now I'd like to introduce our board for tonight. To my left, Rob Coburn, Christina Redding. To my soon-to-be right, Curtis Highsmith, and Jeff Broadleaf. Our attorney tonight is Wayne Bruin. Our recording secretary is Antoinette Edwards, and our videographer is Charlie Styler. Okay, let's begin. Has everyone read the minutes for September 9th?
Yes.
Yes? Do I have a motion to approve the meetings of September 9th, 2019?
So moved.
Second?
Aye.
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 Staying, I was not here.
Aye.
Great. Next, we'll move on to signs. Twomey, Latham, Shea, Kelly, Dubin, and Quattararo LLP. Standing sign and lighting. I have one, I think. We all have one. Do we have enough for a sign here?
Good evening.
Your name, please?
Katerina Grinko of 2 Latham, 200 North Sea Road, Southampton. I'm appearing on behalf of our firm, 2 Latham, to present this project. We appeared before this board on August 12th to discuss our proposition to remove the wall sign presently erected on the westerly wall of the building and position it as a freestanding sign on 3 posts. We also heard a series of comments and concerns at that hearing, and since that appearance, we amended our application just to make it clear that we are substituting the wall sign with a freestanding sign. One of the comments was that it was not clear, our previous application, so we made sure we amended that. We also submitted for the record a detailed analysis of other freestanding signs approved by this board throughout the village, as well as along North Sea Road. And as was requested, we provided photos of signs along North Sea Road.
Can I just ask you a question? Sure. Because the building doesn't really face North Sea Road. It faces Prospect Street or whatever street. Is that Prospect?
It's Prospect, yes.
Well, that's a residential street. That's where I started to.
Well, we are located in the office district, and the village code allows signs in the office district. And there are numerous other businesses which are in this district, and the signs, freestanding signs.
And they're on North Sea Road. I went and looked.
They are North Sea
Okay.
Road, yes.
Thank you.
Just wanted to mention that our proposition to place freestanding sign in that location is consistent with the Zoning Board of Appeals decision. We are definitely removing the westerly wall sign And we also are proposing illumination, which is all within the bounds of the code. The code allows illumination of freestanding signs so long as the illumination itself of 75 watts or less, and it does not this, it's not exceeding the limits. It doesn't.
The method of your illumination, is it projected light towards the sign itself?
Correct, yes,
It's not
that's-
backlit, it's not illuminated.
So
This
we're
one-
proposing the sign, a single sign with, a sign with the lighting.
You have to leave
Oh,
it flat so you can have it.
Sorry. With a single bar, and the light will be directed towards the sign itself.
So it's a small
Alternative-
light bar that's projected to the sign itself. And it's
Correct.
projected down to the sign, it's not projected
down.
up.
Correct, yes. And actually, I looked through the history of other approved signs, and particularly one of the signs recently approved for One Kings Lane, they have the same type of illumination, and this design was approved by the board. So we were hoping that, this design will be acceptable to this board. If not, we're proposing two other alternatives. We could also have illumination from the bottom, again, directed strictly to the sign, or we can do two signs on each side, and those are known like as gooseneck sign lights. But we prefer to go with a single light above the sign facing down.
And those are LED lights they're projecting down?
I believe they are LED. They are LED. I have my.
And do you know what the equivalent wattage is for the lights being proposed?
It's below the 75 watts for sure, because we want to conform with the code. And maybe you can help me out, Stacy, here, I'm sorry.
Stacy Menzer, Hampton Signs. That bar is less than 60 watts,
60 watts.
less than
So
60 watts.
is there-
In your Exhibit B, where, as far as I can tell, the sign sits out on a completely empty lawn space that's elevated. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
So where is this mention of hedges? Page 3, Exhibit B.
There are hedges lining the parking lot there, and this would be in front of the hedges of the park, before the parking lot. So there's a lawn, and then there's hedges on the perimeter of the lawn, and this would be on the lawn just in front of the hedges.
They're just like about a foot and a half high.
Oh.
And they're
Yeah.
small, 2 feet tops. The border hedges.
So it's closer to the building than the road?
They're closer to the building than, and actually the proposed freestanding sign will be further away from the street than presently erected wall sign. So that's another benefit of it.
For some reason, I find this,
I think we were
Unpleasant.
confused
yes,
as
it was
to,
different.
I watched the video, so back and forth. I know there was confusion as to positioning of the sign, whether there was going to be one on
Right.
building, whether there's going to be one marker sign on the property itself. We'll say this seems a little long
Yep.
in presentation itself. It looks like in order to produce this sign, you're going to have 3 markers to have it posted.
We could have two.
Oh, you
Yeah,
could?
We could have
That
two
would be an
posts on.
improvement.
We could have 2 posts on it. Initially, there were 3 posts because we were asking for 3 lights. Once the 3 lights were removed, we can certainly go for 2 posts.
It is a really long sign, though, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, so-
96?
So let
It is,
me-
but it's not very high because there are a lot of names on
Yeah.
the, Toomey Latham Shea and.
Right.
And
Can I just ask for the, sorry, Jeff, just for the record, is this the same sign that's up on the building
it
right now?
will be,
You're taking that sign off the building, so it's the same size, the exact same size as one of the.
Exactly.
Okay, sorry,
Oh,
Jeff.
that's helpful.
Sorry.
Wish I'd known that today.
So, my view is that my view is that that's a nice piece of greenery on that corner. Yes, there are other freestanding signs. There's the Fowler's sign, but that's hidden back and it's landscaped and part of a tree. There's, Stacy, please, I know what it is. Okay.
I didn't say a
Okay.
word.
All right, good. The attorney sign across the street, I don't know who was on the board when they approved it. Quite honestly, if I was on the board, I would not have approved it. I think the patch of green there is very nice. I'd like to preserve that as green space. I'd rather see a sign on a building. That being said, if the other board members were to approve a freestanding sign, which I'm not necessarily in favor of, it would have to be, for my vote, to be 50% less. It's currently 8 feet by 2. 8 feet, no matter how many names you have on there, is a big sign.
Well-
Excuse me, Katerina, let
Sure,
me
I'm
finish and then
sorry.
you can speak, okay? If you were willing to reduce the sign by half, nix the lighting, then perhaps I would be inclined to vote for it. But at the current size, current location, current materials, current lighting in that location, I can't approve it.
We will not revise our proposal, and the reason for
Then-
that is
then you-
because,
then-
let me
Katerina,
talk
I
now,
know, but
please,
then
I
you can't have my vote.
apologize.
It's that simple.
Well, the code allows us a 24 square foot sign. That's written in the code. So we reviewed the code, we reviewed our zoning, and this particular size of a sign is permitted by the code. So we are here to ask your opinion about the design of the sign and design of the illumination. But the code allows us to have this sign at that location at 20-foot setback, which we are proposing.
Katerina,
And
to be,
additionally-
sorry.
Let's vote.
I'll let you speak. I'll let you speak.
I would
No,
just
no,
say-
no, let me finish after Katerina speaks.
I also wanted to mention to this board that there was one previous tenant at that same building, and in 2013, the Kessler Gallery got an approval for freestanding sign at that same location. So the precedent has been set for that building, and the sign's been approved. So additionally, the entire neighborhood is filled with freestanding signs of even larger in size, and our record establishes it. So the code is we are proposing conforming to the code sign. We're just here to seek your opinion as is within your jurisdiction on the design.
So let me
Can I just
correct
interrupt
you.
you?
If may-
Yeah.
you-
You mentioned there was a previous sign approval. Was that
Correct. I have
approved by
actu-
this board?
It was in 2013, so it is at different members, but I'm saying
Right, but it
the
was-
Architectural
Was-
Review Board.
Was that sign illuminated?
It was not illuminated at that time.
So
You have a
let
picture
me
of it?
just,
I'll put it
a
on
ma- a
Facebook.
matter
Yeah, sure, I have it in my records.
as a matter of nomenclature, and I think it's important, Katerina, I don't believe you're here to ask for our opinion. You're here to ask for our approval.
Approval, correct, I apologize,
Right.
yes.
So therefore, I'm saying if you want my approval, then
Let's
I
see
would
it.
wish that the sign, and therefore that is my opinion as well, is that the sign be half its size. The fact that there may be existing signs approved by previous boards is not of relevance to this board at this time for this property. It's not Kings Lane. It's this property, this sign, this location. It's exactly as you proposed. If you're not willing to compromise, then, and I only have a choice between yay and nay, then mine remains at nay. If you're willing to compromise, then perhaps, and maybe my vote doesn't mean a hoot, depending on how the other folks vote, but for me, it's a negative as proposed.
What is the proposed square footage
It's
area?
16 square feet,
16 square feet.
16,
8 by 2.
8 by 2. The previously approved sign was 18 square feet at that same location for Kessler Gallery, and there are numerous
So
signs.
this is one of those things where volume matters, because the same square footage, but it's a different dimension, meaning it's not rectangular, it was more square, correct?
Yeah, here.
But I see it, I'm looking at it, I'm just.
Does anyone ever remember seeing this more than 20 minutes of?
Which I think is kind of sort of the point that everyone's making, is that even though you had the approximate same square footage in terms of signs of a previous applicant or occupant of that building, how the sign read on parcel was different. And therefore, we're not saying you can't have your square footage, we're saying that there could be a better way to design that so it's not such a long, looking more, I guess, prominent sign
Well, the design was approved by this board when we came before you in
For the building.
April for the building, correct?
So if you
Very
remove
different.
that application no longer exists if you're removing it. It's like if you tear down a house, you're trying to build a new one. The old is gone. So my question to you is that, you're taking this off of the building, so it no longer becomes a building marker, it becomes a property or parcel marker, and therefore, the dimensions on the property matter, because you're changing location. So is there a way to have the same type of square footage you're looking for, but in a design that is a little less prominent? In terms of,
Well, again, we did rebranding of our office sign, and this is our new logo, 2 Latham with TL in between, and then we do have all these equity partners in the firm, which would like, we can't remove their name, so I don't think we can come up with another alternative design.
This has become their corporate logo.
okay.
Great.
So I'd just like, I have a couple questions. I mean, and a comment. The first comment is, just because something is allowed up to a certain size in the code, I've heard other members of your firm come before us on other applications and argued that that's a absolute maximum, but there's discretion on this board and in others to do things different to the maximum. So that argument, unfortunately, doesn't hold a lot of water with me. I don't mind the sign the way some other people on the board do. I have concern with the lighting. I'm just not sure why it's necessary. I've looked through your package and seen the other signs that are lighted. I know some of them were approved quite recently, but the ones that were approved recently were approved to replace signs that had existed for a long time. There was a lot of lighting of signage along that road. I don't think there's been a lot of brand new lighting approved anywhere in the village on street signage like that. If you think that's incorrect, please let me know, but I think, Capital Bank, for instance, that's a new sign between you and the highway. That was a pre-existing sign with lighting that's probably 35, 40 years old whenever that building was built, is my guess. And I think this board's been pretty consistent about concerns about lighting, not that we disallow it, but that it needs to be specific and appropriate. One of my concerns at that intersection is you've got a lighted signaled intersection. And I'm not a safety expert, but having any kind of lighting in that area, and I know that there is a lighted sign across Prospect Street from you, I agree with Jeff. If that came before us today as a new sign application with a request for lighting, I think I'd be inclined to not approve it. So where I come out is I actually don't mind the sign, even in its current size. I may be unique on the board, maybe not, but lighting it out there, to me, is the step that makes it less appropriate. I know there's other lighted signing on that street. Much of it is between the railroad tracks and the highway, so in a more obviously commercial area. You're in the office district south of the railroad, but it becomes a more mixed area. There are some residences on the road. Even the building across the street from, while it's commercial, looks residential. So my feeling about this is that the sign itself is not objectionable. I would appreciate seeing it on 2 posts rather than 3, but I'm stuck on the lighting. And right now, as a lighted sign, it's something that I feel is not necessarily appropriate. It's
Can I
too...
just make one comment on that?
Yeah.
That both the law firm directly opposite them and the law firm just on the other side of the railroad tracks are both lighted signs.
Yeah.
So that in some way puts them at a disadvantage of not having a lighted sign as you're coming down. There are 3 lawyers right there. I think that is
Since those other lights,
So
let me
you're
just
saying
finish.
this is
Let me ju-
advertising? See, that's what, we're ending up putting up billboards, folks. This is a professional firm. People aren't driving down the street saying, "Whoop, I'm going to stop in and get an attorney." Why? So
Stacey, let me just also respond. That, while we have not adopted dark skies in this village, a lot of people have. I would suspect that most of the lighted signs in your book of photographs pre-exist any notion of dark skies. We are trying to reduce and control lighting in public spaces because most people find it more aesthetically pleasing. So I hear what you're saying. There are other lighted signs around. As I said before, most of those on that street seem to be concentrated in that more commercial section north of the railroad. I know there are some further down, but the Schmidt sign is not lighted, I don't believe. There are a couple on the other side of the road, on the west side of the road, that are. But, I think tastes also evolve, and with respect to lighting, if you go back to the 50s and 60s, every sign was lighted, and goosenecks were everywhere, and people shone spotlights on things, or you had internally lighted signs everywhere. Those are things that we've tried to get away from, I think.
I think we were very concerned, though, here with actually dark sky lighting, so that we have really limited how bright these lights are. This light is what that is actually proposing here is less than 40 watts, all right? When you think of 40 watts, we can't read as adults by 40-watt lighting. They recommend something like 100 watts to read a book. So when we're talking about 40 watts from a distance, it's enough to give it some kind of shine, but really not enough to sit there and read.
You're trying to show the logo sort of broadly to people at night. Okay.
And again, it's shining right onto, because it's centered, it will be shining right onto the logo.
So my concern is, all the other signs that you're discussing are on North Sea Road, which is more lit. Then when you turn the corner on Prospect Street, that after your building becomes a residential street, so as far as I'm concerned, you may be in a business district, but the circumstances of where the sign is being put places it basically in a residential area, and that to me is a problem.
If it was more
Well-
on
Prospect.
well, if it's off of Prospect and it was more on
North Sea, I
Road,
could
you-
understand the argument.
It is diagonally facing North Sea Road, and it's also, again, facing where the lawyer across the street is. So you've got, the sign, I'm not going to say that it's
Like
parallel to that.
landscape, this thing just sits out there like vermicelli to me. Great big thing.
But it's also very low to the ground, so that it's not going to be
It's
above.
on I've looked at it, it's on a piece of property that has a big rise.
elevated.
It is,
So
but
then it's not low.
it is low compared to where the bushes will be, so that the bushes will be visible behind it. This is going to sit low to the ground. It's not sitting up 5 feet. We're talking about 18 inches underneath it, if that
It's
much.
already elevated, how many feet is that, 6, 7?
Yeah, I see
The way the land works.
Well, it's on the hillside, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's
You're
that
down the
whole
grade
building.
slightly
Right,
from the
it will
top.
even out with the hill almost.
The tie-in.
Can you swing it that overboard towards North Sea sign?
We
So
can.
it becomes a true marker and not a brand of the building?
We can.
Would that be more?
Yeah, that would be more. I just feel it, it's an odd circumstance, but that's Prospect Street where lots of people live.
So you'd be willing to relocate?
Can you mark where you're thinking of? for
Well,
the-
I just wanted to mention for the record that the zoning board of appeals approved the proposed location of the sign, so
That's
You're
cool.
trying to get an approval.
We're not the ZBA.
I understand, but, they have jurisdiction over the proposed location.
So you
and-
don't want us to talk about it?
Okay, fine.
No, we would like
Let's
you to
vote.
talk about it. I just
I
want to
say
mention it
let's
for the
vote.
record.
Motion, we're getting nowhere, aren't we?
No, we're,
Okay.
so your proposed sign is, sorry. Charlie, you getting it? Your
doesn't even
proposed
have
sign
it
is here,
down.
correct?
Yes, that's the bolded line in the corner of the,
It's the southwest corner of the property.
Yeah, here.
Not
Up a little bit
exactly.
more. I think that you're not hitting it exactly. I think it is the bold, straight line.
that's the bold straight line.
This,
Up, no, no, no.
Can I come there and show you?
you can come here and show me.
Thank you.
Why don't you lay it out on the
Let's put that
table?
down
Why
there.
don't you put it on the table
What
and
is
show
it?
us?
Okay.
Do you mind? Thanks.
Yeah, and then you can show everyone.
There.
And
Thank
then
you.
Fine.
So it is actually this line.
Come over, yeah. We're getting to you, Charlie. There you go.
It's at 20 feet as required by the code. This is the bolded line.
Isn't that what I circled?
I'm sorry, I thought you were down further.
It's okay. So it is facing North Sea, it's just angled more towards Prospect. So it's the angling, not necessarily the positioning.
No, it's angled towards North Sea.
North Sea,
North
okay.
Sea, yeah. Here is North Sea, and this is the angle.
So
So it's not parallel with the
Prospect is
building,
here.
but it's parallel with the, almost parallel with the property line at that.
Here's North Sea, here's proposed sign. It's pretty much parallel. There are a small set of steps, and it will
Sorry?
face the
It's
steps.
not going to be visible from Prospect
Okay.
at all.
So are you saying that if they change the position of the sign,
It
you're
doesn't
okay
seem
with the
that that's the
lighting?
They don't
case.
have, it's not,
I'm okay with the position. My issue is the size and the lighting. Shrink
Well-
it down, take off the lighting, you got me.
Would the board consider approving the sign on condition that we will not illuminate it?
I think you have a favorable vote,
Yeah.
at least it could pass without it lit.
We'll reserve on the record our right to appeal that
what does that
aspect
mean?
of it.
You can come back to us and ask?
She needs to consult with her partners.
Yeah, I don't.
So you need an adjournment, is that correct?
No, I don't need an adjournment. I would like to close this. But if we could approve the sign on condition that we will not illuminate it, we would like.
How's that going down on this side?
I'm okay with that.
You would have to refile for an amendment of their prior approval.
What, with the ZBA?
If later on.
The light.
they-
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
they'd have to come back, but they'd have to have a whole new
Several sales
application.
could get the people to say yes. And after you get a yes, maybe you can get another yes down the road.
Yeah, got it.
Common.
Well, I'd be willing to make a motion to approve the sign of Toomey Latham, which is a removal of the current sign and relocation of that exact sign to the location proposed without illumination,
With 2 posts.
with 2 posts.
Second.
Aye.
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 Nay.
No illumination. So who's gonna mark this up? Me? You need to mark up the plans to. Maybe you
Can I give you
can-
my copy?
Yeah, just,
Here, do you want to take?
Thanks, Ron.
A little post.
There goes my over-under.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
This is the first time we ever had a sign application.
it took 15
This
minutes.
thick one.
Next is Southold Properties. No lighting, 2 posts. Yeah, okay, good.
Kenneth Carlin, Southold Properties, owner of what you know as the movie theater in town. I did not have a presentation. I figured it was a rather simple proposal. It's a painted sign on the side of my building to post parking regulations. I thought it was quite clear in the paperwork I sent you.
Here, let's put this down because I think it's.
Yeah, I didn't bring it because I didn't know that it was
A
going to be...
number of us, including me, had issues with that parking signage really should be on a sign on the road and not on a building. And this in particular is I understand you have an issue, and I believe that other
What does that mean, I have an issue? I don't understand what you're
Well,
saying.
must have a parking issue,
you want to
not a
protect the
personal
use of your parking for your
Yes,
patrons.
thank you.
Okay, so
We
a
all
plate.
have, we all have issues.
Yeah.
Yours is
But you have an
parking.
issue with
Psychiatrist
people
bills are-
parking there who aren't going to
Right.
movies. Now, CVS has put in signs that say that you'll be towed away if you're not doing business with
And so
them.
does
And those
everybody.
signs are not on the side of the building up high. And it seems to me that that would be the proper way to produce signage to meet your goal. And that putting a big sign like that up on a building right in the village center has an unfriendly message.
It's aggressive and unfriendly.
Yes, and is probably not going to be acceptable, but I'd ask my fellow board members to.
I'm trying to keep it simple and not spend a lot of money. It's a sign, it's not particularly large, 3.5 by 6 feet or something like that. It says, park here for movies, don't park here otherwise. Plain and simple. I don't think it's any different than any other business that has private parking has put up.
Is there a
What
reason
other
that...
business is that? I don't see any other businesses that put up
Yeah.
signs like that.
Across the street, there's a I don't know if it's a bank, whatever, I just drove through their lot. It says parking for customers only, others will be towed.
Is it painted on the building?
No, it is not.
That's what we're talking
That's the
about.
concern, I think. Is there any reason you can't put this on a signpost at the front of the driveway?
Well, you guys have to tell me. Tell me what's acceptable and what isn't. I don't
I
have a
think-
problem building a sign.
Start there. I mean,
you know.
that's, I will agree with my board members. You're painting on the side of a building for
My
potentially trying to eliminate anyone to park there who are not your patrons. I understand it, understandable, but it's something that you don't paint on the side of the building. It is a marker, a sign you put somewhere in proximity to where you want individuals to recognize your spaces.
All right, so
My
then-
question to you is
Yeah.
that this is in the rear of the building or the front of the building?
It's, what, the parking?
Yes.
It's on the side.
The entire lot.
The entire rear lot.
Yeah, it's my property. All 2 acres of it.
But it's on the side when you drive in, right?
Right, I want
That's
to,
our
driving
problem.
up Hill
You
Street, it's on
you
the
can
side.
place those
Placard.
rate or placard, I mean,
I don't know
whatever
what
you
they're
want to do.
called. Well, that-
I
so
hope that
then you
sometime
tell
you'll
me- you
repave
tell
back
me-
there. I
Would
mean, I
you
hope
mind
sometime
if
you'll
he
start
put it on the
repaving and
back?
put lines there so it looks a little, I'm
Yeah.
sorry?
Would we mind if he put it where you're actually facing the back of the movie theater in the lot?
My guess is he probably wants notice for people as or before they drive in to say, kind of, don't even come in here if you're not a patron, or if you're not coming to see a movie. That's fair.
Even during the day?
Yeah.
That's
his
his
property.
prerogative.
it's my property.
However,
If you're
I
coming
don't
to see
think
a
a big
movie.
unfriendly sign on the wall of a building that,
I don't agree with your language, unfriendly sign.
okay,
I-
fine, we disagree,
You know,
sir.
Yeah.
I'm happy to
I think
disagree.
the
That's
concern
what
is
I
that
do.
there's not a lot of precedent for
My job
painted signs.
sometimes.
I know there are in some villages, there aren't in this village.
Okay.
On the sides of buildings.
So then let's get back to the thing. What would you suggest that I
A
propose?
freestanding sign.
That would be, what, how big, how small, what, you have a problem with the language, you have a problem with the size, you know, you tell me, you want me to put up a sign this, can I put up a sign this big on two wooden posts?
I think we're sort of missing the point here. You're here before this board to approve a sign, to get approval for a sign affixed to a building. What we're saying, I think, for the most part, and I don't want to speak for everybody, is that we recognize your issue with parking, and in that the parking takes place in the rear, could you not put whether it be a freestanding sign, the same way we have beach permit signs, as you drive down the driveway and it says on either side, for moviegoers only?
I can do that, I just,
Okay, just looking for
I'm being
guidance.
lazy. All right?
Oh, yeah.
I'm being lazy.
Okay.
All right? I would like
And
to
you're being
have,
honest, so please.
to come to an understanding of what I can propose that would be acceptable to this
I
board.
think that what you really have to do is go and talk to the building department about what the rules are
So
for that kind of
Sign is in
sign.
a lot.
could I recommend that, because I assume that the access off of Windmill Lane up the road there is also into your property. At some point, you hit your property line. Is that entire driveway your property as well? Or from the top on?
It's a mystery to everybody who I've ever spoken to for
Okay.
the last 40 years.
So my recommendation, if this were my property, I would consider putting in signs somewhere near the beginning of each of those entries, the one to the east of the building off of Hill Street and the one up the hill off of Windmill Lane, on a sign that is acceptable dimensionally to village code, which you can get from the building department. They'll tell you what size that can be. I don't see anything wrong with the language. The fact that the language is a little unfriendly is what it is. You want to keep people out who shouldn't be there, so I don't mind that. I
If it
think
hadn't been abused, the language wouldn't be friendly. It's been abused for years.
So I think the thing that makes it unfriendly.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I've used your parking.
No, but, okay. But I think,
Send you a bill.
sir, I think the thing that makes it unfriendly visually to this board, and it's not the right word, but is not so much the language, it's painting it on the side of the building and make it as large as
I
that.
thought that would be the simplest solution without
Understand.
putting posts.
Okay,
It is-
aesthetically, we have concerns about that. If you could find maybe a place to the right of the driveway off of Hill Street to put a sign that had this language, and somewhere as you come up the hill from Windmill Lane, the same thing. If you wanted to paint something like this on the back of the building, or have another sign in your parking lot that reinforced it, I don't think we'd have any problem with that as well. I think I'm hearing that. It's just the visual impact of that on a busy road, seeing that on the side of the wall, setting a precedent for a painted sign in the village, I think is the concern.
Not a problem. I'll get you something else.
Okay, Billy, talk to the building department.
It may even be such that you
Sir.
don't have to come before us. If it's just a freestanding sign in a parking lot, it may fall under the building department, and you don't, as much as we love seeing you and dealing with you,
There you go.
dealing with your issues.
So are you asking us to adjourn for all
That's, it would,
purposes?
if that's the proper next step, or, yes.
And if they determine you don't need to come before us, you can just withdraw it or ask the
I'll
building
send you a
permit to
Christmas
withdraw.
card.
Do you want to withdraw your application? They give you your money back?
No, because if he needs to come back before us,
Okay.
he should keep it
So
open.
you're asking us to adjourn for all
Will I get
purposes?
interest on my money?
Just adjourn it for
Turn
now
it for now, yes.
Okay, motion to adjourn the application of Southhold Properties,
At the request of the
43
applicant.
Hill Street,
So
at the
moved.
request of the applicant.
Second,
Aye.
Thank you.
thank you.
Don't park there anymore, jeez.
Well, people say that, and it turns out it's not right. Next is Direct Access Real Estate Incorporated, a real estate sign. Hi, step forward and state your name, please.
Nicholas Serrato. I'm the CEO of Direct Access
And
Real
Do you
Estate.
have a copy of the sign, or we have?
Yes, I do.
Oh, good.
Could
Could
put
you
it
put
down
it on the
facing-
table, please?
Like this?
Has everyone seen this?
Charlie, can you get that?
Oh, but wait, now, that's different than the one we have in the folder, because the
No.
one we have in the folder says call Nick.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it still does here, but in blue, or?
Well, I'm
Oh,
glad
really?
Paul Nick is on it.
Oh, I
No, it's
see,
there.
now I
I-
see.
I blued it. I wasn't sure.
Meaning
Oh, you're
what?
willing
You want
to
it to be
take the
blue, or you want it
nick
to be
I
out?
want it to be white, that it was originally, but somebody told me
So
maybe,
this is what you want. This is what you want.
yes,
The white one, not the
Yes.
blue one.
yes.
So we should put that one down.
That looks the same as this,
No.
It's the same thing, except that's
Except,
white.
yeah.
and it says
Except for Call Nick. Gee,
Yes.
I'm not real friendly to the Call Nick.
No, I'm not either.
So you might want to keep both of them down there for a moment. Okay,
Now we're talking.
board members,
Okay, Nick's the call Nick.
I think is there any objection to it without the Call Nick?
No, I would just say, if you want people to know your name, I'd prefer to see your name, Nick Serrato, as opposed to call Nick just sounds a little billboardy, and
Yeah.
that's something we try to stay away from.
All right, I already, I already made the sign.
Oh, I like
now.
his name.
What, you
Thank
already
you.
made the sign?
I'm sorry?
What did you say?
No, I said I already made the sign, it's already done, so I can blue it out. That's why I blew it out. Somebody said that maybe the board would not like Call Nick.
It's
so-
not, we have nothing against you or your name.
It's okay.
It just feels a little billboardy.
It's all right, Rob, no
Okay.
problem.
How did you
Jeff?
sir?
Yes, sir.
You said you're going to put something over the names?
I could just blue it, I can
Black
make it,
tape? What's-
On a, on a, what's
I
the
could
sign
blue it
made
out.
of?
I could blue it out, paint it out,
still
more or
Is it
less.
cardboard?
It's metal,
It's metal.
Yes.
So-
How about
yes.
Black it out.
paint or black tape?
Yeah,
Duct tape.
you
He
won't see
sounds like
Call
he
Nick.
knows what he's doing.
I'll have another sign made up, Nick Serrato, I think.
If you want to come back.
Yeah, I'd
and-
like to
I think
do
that
that
isn't that,
eventually.
it's the phrase "call Nick" that just feels a little billboardy.
So where is that? We need to
I thought it was friendly, honestly, I mean,
Yeah, we try not.
I'm a good guy.
It's an identifier, not
it's
an
down there.
advertisement.
I helped all you guys, I was a New York
So
City
could you-
detective, so
Yeah.
If you could give us a yellow one back.
I saved all your lives. I mean, it's okay,
Give us
don't
the
worry
yellow
about it.
You know, but Nick, we
What do
have
you
a
think?
job too. That's our
I
problem.
know, it's okay, I'm only
So the
joking.
sign itself is
Seriously.
blackface, and what is the color of the lettering?
White.
White, so it's black and white sign.
The sign itself is blue
It's
face.
blue face.
Oh, it's blue.
But
Okay.
it would, blue would be nicer for the Hamptons.
Okay. You're right.
Blue is Hamptonish.
Yes.
Is there any public comment on this sign? Okay. I'm going to make a motion that we approve the sign of Nick Serrato for direct access real estate, provided that the call Nick is painted over or otherwise appropriately obscured in the blue color.
Second.
Aye.
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 Okay,
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll call you later.
Good. Have a good night.
We'll
Next,
call you.
Call me anytime you need a prop.
okay, UBS Builders, a contractor sign. Was this in there today? Or did it just show up? Let me see the date on that thing.
Flip it around.
Oh, you want to? Yep, that's right.
What's,
Take care.
what is UBS Builders?
Builder, contractor.
Like the bank UBS? Or?
Well, it actually stands for Unique Building Solutions.
Oh, okay.
But it's a subsidiary
That's
of,
not a bank, that bank is,
I wish I was
Glad to hear.
UBS.
does anyone have, yeah. Anybody have an objection up here?
Nope.
Anyone from the public have anything to say about the UBS Builders contractor sign? No? Motion to approve the application of UBS
I make
Builders?
a motion that we approve the sign application for UBS Builders.
Second, aye.
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 Thank you.
Record time.
Note to self, always be the last one on the agenda.
Actually, that doesn't always work. I just got lucky.
Do you have the Southwood Properties and movie theater?
I never
Good?
had
Thank
it.
you. Good.
Oh, did they take
They'll
it?
send
No,
it-
the final
they'll
one
send
when
it.
we corrected it.
I must have taken it.
The Southwood Properties went home. It was adjourned.
Well, I know, but I don't have the application.
gone.
Well, okay, I'll track it down. Thank you.
So
Next. Oh, sorry. Written decisions. Old Town Lodge, number 908, 40 Main Street. Do we have that?
Yes. Here's
Need the
the-
original. Thank you.
Anyone not seen a copy? Who wants to see one now?
No, I read it.
This was the, anyone have anything to say about this written decision?
No?
Nope. Okay, let's vote.
I'll make a motion that we approve the written decision of council for Old Town Lodge at 40 North Main Street. 40 Main Street, excuse me.
second,
Aye.
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 Okay. How do you vote? Rob?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Here's your. There are amazingly no driveway gates, historic or non-historic, on the agenda. So moving ahead, we're going to public hearings, non-historic. Garage, India, Young Vonich, 169 Elm Street.
Yes, those are the latest.
And she's passing. Your name, please?
Hello, my name is Xiu Liu. I'm the architect for 169 Elm Street. We were in front of the board like
A while ago.
times before, yes. And then we did make quite a bit of change. If you see, this is the last submission, the site plan for the last submission. And there is a porch in the back here. And we took it out, so there's no more porch. And this is not a covered area, this is a stoop, this part of the site plan. It's a stoop because you're required by code to have a 3 feet depth of a stoop when you go out of the door. So that's in terms of the site. And in terms of the elevation,
Zach?
Oh, thank you.
this is was the top one is what we were proposing last time. And we took out the porch, of course, and then we reduced the second floor. We pull it back so that it is a little bit shorter than the existing footprint. The existing footprint is here, we're like 5 inches in. So the second floor, you know, the longness of the roof is reduced in this manner.
So, wait, on the proposed front elevation on A3, there's still a porch. Yes?
That's the front.
Just the front porch.
Yes. Was that what you were removing?
She's removing
No,
that.
no, 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 in the back.
Oh, in the back, it's stuck out.
No, no,
Okay.
the front stays the same.
Okay.
On A3, what's showing on A3 on the bottom there for existing is what's there right now, which is 2 sheds that aren't attached, but they're very close to the house. But what they proposed previously was an addition on the back plus a single-story porch off of the back. So it's not
Right,
showing
and
on A3 here.
I
She's
made,
saying
I
that's
was
been removed.
watching, of course, Channel 22 when I happened upon the ZBA meeting. And I had asked you originally if you had asked for any variances, and you said that there was only one that had to do with the sky plane of the,
No, the 5 feet, the garage setback of 5 feet. The sky plane was
some
applied.
rule, right.
It was applied erroneously, and Chris Topper put
Right,
it in the file.
okay. But
That's-
now it turns out that the existing outbuildings that were originally on the plans that we saw are not, they don't have a COA, and so that changes. So now you're proposing?
No, we have CO. I found it, and it was all submitted for ZBA.
But you're proposing removing those now
Yeah.
in this site plan?
Yeah, we're removing the shed here.
You found all of the
Yeah.
certificates for all those two sheds, correct?
One shed, one garage.
Okay. And on the proposed front elevation, the fireplace, what do we got going here?
I was hoping to remove this fireplace. It's like a liability. There's no use.
Is it old?
It's very old, but we could
Zach?
keep.
I'm sorry, you're talking about the chimney.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I have to keep it, I'll keep it.
Well, it's not original to the building.
Okay,
so
fine,
if it's
no
not
problem.
functioning, it would be lovely to
Okay.
remove it.
Okay,
Then
just wanted
it's-
to clear it through.
Yeah, it's proposed to remove it because
That's good.
it's useless thing there.
Okay, I just don't want to,
That's a
go
positive.
on, I'm sorry I interrupted you, but I wanted to clear up what I had misunderstood, obviously.
I may want to interject. Number one, the zoning board application is still pending.
It is.
It's supposed to be on Thursday for a decision, so there's no decisions yet. However, the relief asked at the zoning board is for the garage. What came up at the zoning board was the shed that was immediately to the rear of the house. And what was found in the records, that the shed was of a certain dimension originally in the original CO, and that somewhere in between it had grew and it was extended. Nonetheless, the applicant, since that time, and researching the records, came back with a revised plan, which is to actually remove that entire shed with its length and then replace it with what was the original size shed in a different location further to the rear of the property near the garage. I believe that's your site plan. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
I think the proposed shed is actually smaller than the many years ago shed.
And do we have this only shows the house, do we have anything on the garage here?
Yeah, we have the garage was filed a while ago, and since nobody objected, I didn't resubmit it. It's in the file.
Is the shed before us as well?
Shed was filed too. It was last time.
But we didn't approve the shed the last time.
We haven't approved anything.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it was filed.
These plans she's given us are just what's been changed in this hearing
Okay.
tonight.
I have
So
drawings.
everything else is in the file.
I have the drawings for the garage and shed.
We
Okay.
probably do too, we just,
Would you like it or no?
I would at some course, but however you're proceeding, I'm fine. But yeah,
Let's stick with the house for now.
Oh,
I think
okay.
there's wood to chop.
So that's the south side, and we took out the window. We took out my window here, and then this is the north.
Which window where, can you just wait for the rest?
Oh.
Which facade?
This is the south elevation. That's the last proposal. We
Yep.
took out this. We took out this, and we reduced this.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the south side. And then we're looking at the rear and the north side. The rear, actually, when you look at it, it's not a big difference because this was like a porch, but we have that little bit of roof that's recessed before we start the second floor. So it looks very similar, except that that one doesn't have columns. And the north side, I think it's more, it's also more simplified. The roof line is more simplified, the window. This one it's gone. And of course, it's, you know, the second floor is shortened and there's no porch.
So I'll start by saying, I think this continues to be very responsive. I appreciate that. I think it's material to have pulled back the second story from the rear to address the concerns that the board had about the building sort of being elongated and telescoping. So I think that is responsive and helpful. The one thing that catches my eye that I just don't understand entirely, and it's a small detail, but the roof line on the second story in the northwest corner, when I look at the proposed rear elevation on A4, I see sort of a gable form that stretches from the south side of the property to about 2/3 of the way toward the north side, the second-story gable facing the rear of the house. And then you have a little sort of hip roof that comes out further to the north there. I think looking at it in the north elevation, it looks fine. Do you see where I'm talking about?
You mean here, this roof?
Yeah, that roof. On the north elevation, it looks fine. From the south, I'm not quite sure what's going on.
You mean from the
Sort of
rear?
a hybrid dormer / not sure. We don't have a roof plan of this latest edition.
I do
You
have.
do.
a roof
Could you,
plan.
that may help explain what's going on.
Well, the thing is that I'm trying to make the roof smaller. And hip roof is the best way to make roof smaller
Yep.
because you pitch both direction. So this is the gable. This is the gable. That's the rear, the gable. And this is the roof that covers the first story.
Yep.
And this is the hip. So by doing this, I actually minimize the volume. I could theoretically do a straight shed dormer, but I think,
To the north, yeah.
yeah, but I think a hip probably is better for this situation because it reduces the volume.
Well, I appreciate reducing the volume. Zach, I know this doesn't face the public right of way. It's a little less visible. It's not a feature I think we would have seen on the house when it was originally built. Do you have any comments on that?
Well, I think both
Fine.
the north elevation and the opposing south are improved because there's greater variety as the house telescopes back. I think that's more the case on the south elevation, where there's now an additional very shallow shed-roofed extension that breaks. I mean, that doesn't read as a long, continuous wall. Similarly, the north, having that little lower shed unit project and then turning the corner with that hip roof kind of breaks up that facade.
Okay.
And overall, as you're saying, it's been foreshortened by, from what you had proposed earlier,
Yeah.
by a whole window bay, which is
Yeah.
perhaps, I don't know, 8 feet or so? What is the length that you've reduced the proposal by?
What do you
Like a
think about the
6 feet?
on that gable, that rear gable, where it shows almost like a return, and you mimicking just a return from a feature element
That-
on the other side?
On the left side of that gable?
Correct. Or it's reading as a return?
Would you want to match that on the right side of it with a
I
return?
think it brings it more
Yeah.
conformity, maybe.
The
see what he's talking about?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the alternative would
twists
be
and turns
to
and-
just carry that roof all the way to the back rather than turning it.
That too.
And but that, I think, there is a sky plane
A return here.
issue. I don't know
Just so that
what
it's geometric.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you just have such a, what I feel, a
Yeah.
drastic
So
turn
just
on the hip
carrying this
roof from the front
line
gable.
back.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you have the rear gable,
Not turn
you have
it.
such a drastic hip roof.
So what
that
do you
have-
want her to do?
That's a
So you
good
see how
point.
this return?
Put a return
You
there,
put a
too.
return here, and
Yeah.
then you're focusing
Yeah, you mean
on
a shed
this,
roof
not
instead
so
of
much
a
of
hip
this.
roof.
That's a good point. That was drawing my eye too, and even though it's part of that.
Drawing
sort of-
your eye to that because it's
Yeah.
just like a,
Do you hear what he's saying, actually? Because this is one of the reasons my eye was drawn to that roof line there. On the rear elevation on A4, up in the upper left corner, the way that that left window, the single window reads with the roof line over it, it looks like that's almost a return from the gable. Do you see where on the left side of that gable coming down, it's almost like it's a return? Would you be?
Kind of leading your eye just into that area. Now you have a drastic hip roof in front of a.
So it
Behind,
accentuates
hiding behind.
the unusual nature of that condition. Would you, do you think there's some merit, or would you be willing to put a return on the right side of that gable to sort of match that roof
You
condition?
mean here?
Yeah,
For the return, sure.
that's a good idea. Okay. That, because it is, partly it's that effect of a return and the hip roof. I appreciate why you're doing it, to reduce the mass. But it also creates a very sort of unique and slightly awkward architectural condition over there, to my eye.
Okay.
I still have trouble with the front elevation with this 2-foot bump out to the south, I guess, that you put. I'm taking out the chimney, and then for some reason you're adding, it's such a tight, it's a narrow front, it isn't pretty. And the driveway, I mean, there's almost no room on this lot. But what is the point of having this, other than to get, 2 feet on something? What is the point of that?
Well, that's what I was saying,
That's a problem
one-story
for
shed
me.
roofed.
So that's this here. That's this element here.
Yes.
This small little
I think the
impingement.
effect of that
Which
is
I'm
to
assuming
break
a
up-
kitchen?
Break up
Yeah.
that.
It's a kitchen, right?
Yeah.
So you're bumping out the kitchen, you're making more.
It's from the front, Zach?
Well, I don't think it's not
Rather
all
be
that
one
obvious,
story
but
than
when
two.
you look down across that elevation, I think that will relieve, I mean, the existing condition is just a long, solid wall, and to
All right.
put that in the
Most
middle
people
of it, I
would have
think
done
will
is
break
they
it up.
would have taken advantage of the opportunity to increase the second story.
Sort of like a bay window,
story.
the Victorian
And-
sort of one-story.
And am I reading it correctly? The shed roof over
Quite
that
interesting.
connects with and sort of communicates with the existing shed roof to the east of it? When I look at the proposed south elevation on A3, you've got that shed roof over that 2-foot bump out. It looks like it maybe just lines up with the existing
hope.
shed roof?
They're not exactly on the same plane, but has the same kind of language.
Yeah. So, okay, so it almost looks, if not continuous, but
Yeah,
Same
it
line.
goes like a little bit jagged.
And the pitch is kind of narrow, so is that going to be a asphalt roof, or are you going to try to put some type of?
No, it's asphalt, it's fine. Asphalt can have pretty low pitch.
So, I think you've tried hard, I'll give you that. But since, I do notice on the site plan that with the proposed shed, it's a pretty big garage, although I don't see the dimensions of the garage, and the swimming pool and the house, not to mention the driveway and the parking area.
It's
That we
all the way in the
have,
back with the doors facing the side yard. No one's ever going to see the garage.
They already have a garage there. It's essentially taking the garage that's there and actually moving it
Further
to the
back.
other side of the property.
okay. It just seems like, where is there any relief from buildings?
Well, well, to that point, but from a different perspective, what I like about your redesign is that you
Less extensive.
created more open space in
Yeah.
the back by removing those sheds, but then you negate that a bit by adding that 8x10 shed, which is only less than 2.5 feet from the property line. I would much prefer, and the board does have oversight over the siting of structures on the property, that you not build that shed.
We need the shed because you cannot put a pool equipment that doesn't meet 20 feet setback.
You could also put the
So-
pool equipment in the garage, too.
They told me no,
Who told you no?
the inspector.
I'm not
They
su-
told me
I'm not sure why you couldn't do that. I'm not questioning the inspector. I know I've seen,
Maybe somebody
pool-
put it there, but I didn't
maybe so,
ask.
I know, either in the garage or attached to the garage. So for that matter, behind, on the north, so is that the north side? But on the back side of the, I'm sorry, the west side, the west furthest side of the garage, you could put something back there. and ask for a variance there.
There's a setback line.
Yeah, but they're asking for a variance anyway.
Well, I
So-
think the reason that the argument for the current shed is that the approved shed, the originally approved shed, was only 2 feet 7 inches off the property line. So
Well, this hasn't been approved yet either, by the way.
but there is an approved shed on the site right now.
It's
It's
pre-existing.
So you're
Existing.
replacing pre-existing shed in its exact location?
No,
No,
moving
it's
it back
smaller,
30 feet.
but back.
No,
Moving it back
unlikely.
away from the house
My
to let
guess
the
is
house
that's not
breathe
gonna
more.
fly. So how do we work? So until these issues get resolved, when's
Well,
the
I
meeting?
would,
Thursday?
whatever the zoning board does
Yeah.
is not of issue with my vote on the ARB, which in the code allows us to base our approval or not on the siting of the property. So if the ZBA says, well, that's fine, well, that's good for them, but I think, yes, there are some pre-existing sheds, whether they were legal or not, or however that got done, they're there. But here's an opportunity to improve the site. They're squeezing in a pool in a very small property that's already crowded. If there was another way of creating more open space by putting that pool equipment somewhere else, whether it be in the back of the garage, they have to get a zoning variance anyway. So throw it in the back of the garage at the back of the property where nobody can see it, and you'll have even more open space. The improvements on the house, I think, are great. I just wish you would choose to find another place for the shed.
Just know, I personally don't have any challenge with the shed, which I'm assuming will also be transitioned into some type of changing space as well, not just pool equipment. It's probably more in line to, not necessarily a pool house, but at least a place for relief.
Well,
More than anything else.
It's like 10 feet off the pool, though.
No,
So-
it's,
That's neither here or there. You've taken a very long, narrow lot. You put a lot on that long, narrow lot, and it's placed in the manner that I think at least is more cohesive, more linear. You have the garage at the rear of the property. It's not facing the road. It's out of the way. No one will complain about it. You have the property, the house itself sited on the property in a manner where you still have side yard appearances and views. You have a rear yard which has more than enough entertainment space for family, if that's what you're using it for, and purposes, obviously that's what you want to do for a pool. I don't have any issue with all of that. If you're replacing a pre-existing shed and you're reducing it, that actually makes me feel a little more comfortable, rather than just keeping the shed that's there and trying to make way with it, trying to make do with it. So I particularly like the fact that they took that in consideration. They made it a little bit more conforming to the overall lot, rather than keeping what's currently there and then trying to make do with that.
But do you see the plan? Are the plans for the garage and the shed?
I have,
Wait, can I just, are they in the file?
yes,
The same exact plans now that you're,
yes, these are the garage.
I didn't see it on there. There's a big piece of, it's not on there. Garage, where's the shed?
Here's some smaller copies.
The shed, it looks like,
Found it.
That's some smaller- you see a smaller version.
Yeah, it's smaller, it's much better. Thank you.
The garage is going to be the business.
One comment I'd just like to make is that in plan, this looks a little more crowded than I think it will be. Let's just keep in mind that the pool is not an above-ground structure and doesn't add to the sense of crowding on the site when viewed from, the public right-of-way or down the driveway even. So we're really looking at, in terms of the crowdedness and the siting on the site, we're looking at the house, the garage, and that shed. And so from a crowding standpoint, given that the shed's sort of losing about roughly half its size from what is there now, to me, that's an improvement. And
It's more than half. This is the existing shed. This is the size of the existing shed.
You're residing it and making it more functional.
This is proposed size. It's like a fraction, I mean, quarter maybe.
Okay. I've walked the back of the property, and the existing sheds are hideous.
Yeah, terrible.
So I will,
We are,
So,
we are reducing
I will-
it by quite a
I will
bit.
go with my neighbor here and say,
Yeah, and you put in the smallest scheme of a driveway gate I have ever seen.
okay.
Yeah,
all
because
right,
it's
you
going
got-
to be
you shot
part
your
of the
shed.
pool enclosure.
You got-
I'm just
Huh?
thinking
Okay.
from a
It's-
neighbor's standpoint,
Yeah.
you're putting the pool equipment behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Where is it going to be located?
It's going to be in
back of the
in
house.
here, right here. Because it's going to be functioning as part of a pool fence.
Oh, she has to have the fence for the pool.
You have to have a fence for the
Definitely
pool.
do.
So that's like a driveway gate that functions as a pool fence. I talked to Chris and he said he would allow it.
Mhm. And that otherwise you'd have to fence all the way down along the driveway.
Yes.
Which
yes.
might be visually more.
This is definitely visually more pleasing. And it's just 4 feet
Could be right on
high.
the road, so.
It's like
Yeah.
4 feet high. It could be just a regular
Okay, I'm
fence.
just asking, I see this little thing.
Yeah, it's a tiny little thing.
And that's probably just
All right.
4 foot.
Any comments from the,
I'd just like to say thank you for being responsive to our concerns
You're welcome.
behind the house.
is there anyone who would like to speak about this application? Motion to approve application of, I just can't.
I will make a motion that we
Paraj?
approve the application of Paraj and Leah Young-Vanich at 169 Elm Street.
Wasn't there a modification for the return? You're okay with moving forward
Oh.
without?
Could
I'm
you,
okay with it.
you just put a note on it and I would make sure they do it.
I'm sorry?
What, I'm sorry?
Also subject to
Is it
variance.
possible to
Also
put
subject to
a-
variance.
Subject to your
Variance.
proposal.
Yeah.
Yeah, subject to the proposed,
So,
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have an approval on the ZBA as
The
of yet.
ZBA is only for the garage. Yeah,
In the shed?
in the shed.
And the shed.
The relocation of the shed.
So there could potentially be something would change in the application where you would have to come back
Do you want to
before us.
adjourn it until you
So-
get through this? Maybe you should.
It sounds, you have.
No, she
look-
No, I want to get it approved, and if it's something wrong, I'll come and open it again.
So it's in, Wayne was suggesting approval with
Subject to-
subject to.
ZBA approval.
ZBA.
and we could have her make,
As to the garage and the shed, yeah.
right, we could have her make the notations on here now, or if it's going to take, we can approve it, but require you maybe to just submit corrected plans that show that return. Do you mind doing that?
Can
I have no issue with
Can
that.
I put a notation on the plan here?
Mark the plans.
Yeah, you have to
Just-
mark them and sign them.
Just mark the plans? Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
For the resolution, what is the condition?
There's no resolution, it's not historic.
The condition is that
Start again. So
a
let me-
return be put on the north side? No.
The rear elevation, we want the roof, the eve detail match left and right.
Correct. Rear gable
So
matching.
let me amend my
returns.
motion. I'm making a motion that we approve the application of Paraj and Leah Young, Venetia 169 Elm Street, subject to amendment of the plans to show a return on the rear gable, on the right side of the rear gable,
And subject to.
Second.
and subject
And
to
subject to
approval
ZBA
by the
garage and shed
ZBA,
approval.
for the garage and the shed.
Second.
Aye.
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 Next, McDonald's USA, letter requesting an adjournment to our October meeting. We have a letter?
Yeah, there's a request to adjourn to the October 15th agenda. Now, they don't know that, wasn't October 15th canceled?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so it would be until the October 29th meeting, and we should ask
We have to have somebody call them.
Diane to call.
Motion to approve McDonald's request to adjourn till The October meeting, we'll just say it that way, and then someone will have
So
to.
moved.
Second, aye.
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 Next, oh,
Che Wisinji?
was Jen,
We just sing.
Would you sing?
would you see?
We just sing.
Just like it sounds.
150 Harvest Lane.
Just like it's spelled.
Construct second story addition and exterior alterations to the dwelling. Do we need these? Or not? And your name, sir?
David Sherwood, 4 First Street, Sag Harbor, New York. I'm the architect for the applicant.
It's already,
Oh, let me just make sure.
already,
Make it,
no.
Yeah.
Don't be able to-
The affidavits are in.
So we have the affidavits of posting and mailing?
Yes.
Yeah, we were originally on for the August meeting, and then we adjourned.
Oh, okay.
And if any of the members of the board came in prior to, say, the beginning of last week to review the application, you would have seen what I'm actually going to present. If you came in the latter half of this past week, you would have seen something which we were going to amend. And we got some numbers back from the contractors, and so we are not going to be making those amendments. We're going back to the original proposal.
So
Do you have a
are the
date of
plans
that?
in-
Yeah, what you have in the
Are the
file
real
is
plans?
good.
Do you have
Yeah.
small sets or not?
I'm sorry, I don't. No, I can roll it out here if you want to.
Yes, you need to roll it up, please. Okay, we'll look at these two, you look at those. I'll look at those.
Okay, so this project has a number of small sort of maintenance updating items, around the property. The largest is probably the demolition and removal of the existing detached garage, which sits right in the middle of the backyard right now. And when you're inside the house, you have no idea that you're sitting on, almost an acre of property. So the first move is going to be to take that garage down from the property. And so the next step would be to replace the garage, and we would be proposing to do that so that's the existing garage in the back of the house that's going to be removed. From the front of the house, from the street, you've got the main two-story portion of the existing house, and then there's a one-story guest bedroom wing to the east. And what we're proposing to do is to make that into an attached two-car garage, and then to take the bedroom that's in it and put that upstairs on a second floor.
but just to be clear,
Where are the plans for that?
because I walked the property again this afternoon.
Yeah.
The garage, although it's attached,
Via breezeway, right?
doesn't face the street.
No,
But in what you're proposing,
it will.
okay,
It is
we'll deal
proposed,
with that
yeah.
as we go.
Yeah.
Okay, but continue.
So the existing garage removed, the existing guest bedroom wing would be turned into the garage, and then there'll be a second story proposed above that to reclaim the bedroom that we're going to be turning into the garage. On the rear of the house, there is about 120 square foot corner of deck, which we would be squaring off and enclosing so that we can expand the kitchen internally. And then we will be constructing new decks across the back of the house facing the backyard. And then lastly, pool and terracing are also proposed.
Could you show us the elevations?
Yeah.
So we're taking the garage in the rear and turning it into a barbecue pit.
So that's the existing two-story piece. Right now, that's a one-story piece. And that's where the garage is proposed, and then the new master bedroom above that. The reason we would have liked, and we really looked at putting the garage doors on the side, the reason that we're not is because that front corner is only 26 feet from the property line, and practically you really need a minimum of 30 feet to be able to back up and, approach a garage door frontally to get a car into it. So as much as we don't want to put the garage doors on the front of the house, that's where we're proposing to put them right now.
But the garage doors take up a huge portion of the front facade now. Like,
What is the setback of that, what is proposed to be?
That piece is set back about 6 feet from this piece. But you'll see here from, the view from the street, there's a large clump of river birch, which are, actually would be ultimately sited within our island there. The garage, or the driveway now comes in and accesses the garage sort of in a flagpole fashion. What we would be doing is doing a turnaround and giving access there, but these river birch are actually sited in that island, so the impact to the street, if you will, I think is minimized.
do we have the survey?
Have you canvassed the neighborhood to see if there were any other street-facing garage doors?
I looked around and I didn't see any. Yeah.
Did that tell you anything?
We
I-
generally
yeah.
frown on attached front-facing
Right.
garages in the village. They're detached to the side or rear of a building was traditional in the village, but attached has a suburban feel that was not typical necessarily for Southampton. So you're hearing already some expressions of concern about that. I'm surprised to hear that 30 or 26 feet is not enough. I think we had one recently on Pelham where we got to 22 or 23 feet, and that house has been built. Now, I haven't seen a car going in and out because it hasn't been sold. So,
Right.
but 30 feet sounds like there ought to be enough there. But
Well, we're at 26, but, the second garage door bay there is 31, so that one would be more accessible. The front one, I don't think you could make that turn.
because
And we're looking at a lot line on paper, of course, there's a hedge there. So we're losing, 26 is really 22 or 23.
go on with the rest of the elevation, just explaining what's changing, and we might.
So that's obviously the big change for the house. The rest of the house, we're just going to be replacing the windows, the siding, the roof, because it's all 30-plus years old.
And for the record, what materials are you proposing for the roof? and
Red
for the
cedar
siding?
shingles for both, white painted windows and trim, 6/6 double hungs. Wood.
Red cedar, she said for the roof.
Well, actually, you know what? I'm sorry. No, it's asphalt.
And you're going to
Yeah.
incorporate.
Yeah, the existing house is asphalt and the proposed is asphalt. Yeah. On the back of the house, there's an existing little living room piece that juts out, which doesn't have any connection, to the rear yard. We're going to be proposing to put some French doors there and a little trellis that would, take you out onto this, new rear deck. So we're just trying to open the house up to the rear yard.
And no, in the main form of the house, you're replacing the windows, but you're not changing the placement of the windows, the general size of the
For the
size of
most
window?
part, no. I mean, the front elevation is staying just about exactly as it is. Maybe a new entry door. That's the big change there.
Is this the door that you would be using? You actually need,
Yeah, what's drawn, it would be a four light over one panel door.
okay.
Then on the rear, these two bedrooms don't have, in fact, this is currently a bathroom, so we're going to be moving some walls around on the inside. That triple window's not there, that triple window's not there, so we're just trying to open again, first and second floor up to the rear of the property.
And then the lower elevation, which is the sort of
That's
west elevation.
the west side facing the village water recharge basin is essentially unchanged. Those windows are there, those windows are there, that window's there.
And there's the porch that you're proposing
That we're
adding on.
proposing, yeah.
Okay, with the trellis on top. Okay.
So at current, the garage, you have to go behind the house come back up.
and
Take a
swing over.
left.
Yeah.
Take a left and come back up.
Not come back up. No,
Just
just
take a
take a
left.
left.
Take a left. You
into
go
the
in at a
garage.
flagpole and make a left.
Yeah.
The current garage faces east.
The reason you can't do that now,
Because it's set into, the existing garage is set basically in the middle of the property. And we would be proposing to, actually, if you look at
isn't
the
it the same
aerial here.
footprint that currently, you're just using the current you're using the footprint that currently is there, you're not increasing
Right,
or
we're not changing the
reducing.
footprint of the
So
house.
I still don't understand how,
No, but the garage is being torn down. It's a separate building behind the house. So
And-
that's going to, and that is set back about another 20 feet from the property
Right.
line versus what they want to turn into the garage right now.
gotcha.
So my take with over half an acre, and with whether there's a precedent or not, you have options to pursue with your client to come up with a way of not having an attached street-facing garage. And I would ask, and I don't have any suggestions, but I know there are options. It's not that there's no choice. There are options.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, we tried. We want those doors to be
Well,
on the side, we don't want them on the front.
Yeah, it's a matter of choice. So, I mean, there's a existing garage that's not facing the street. So one choice is not to do anything. I'm not suggesting that, but so it's not accurate to say that you don't have a choice. You have plenty of choices.
Right.
And so in this case, with the space that you do have, I think what I'm asking, and I think what some of the fellow board members, and I know Curtis is looking at that design, thinking about what you could do. I don't have the answer, but maybe working with your client, maybe the barbecue pit in the back isn't the be-all, end-all. Maybe that, maybe, sorry.
Necessity, huh?
Maybe that.
Well, that's
could
where
be
the garage
sacrificed.
is now, and that's what we're trying to reclaim. So I think the point,
So you do have.
I hear your
so-
point.
So you have choices.
well, yeah,
Yeah,
we don't want the garage
exactly.
in the middle of the backyard. I think we can put the
But-
doors
but
on the
at
side.
same-
I hear the
At the same
board's
time, the board and the neighbors would prefer not to see
Incorporate it into the
front-facing.
Yeah.
And your comment about the landscaping, while we do take that into some consideration, we also have to assume that either tastes change, the owner's tastes change, Mother Nature
Light.
has something to say, and that tree goes away. And we've been pretty consistent about trying to discourage
Creative.
attached front-facing garages. So,
And that being said, the house needs the attention that you're giving it.
Yep.
So that's very welcomed.
it feels to me, and we should ask
No,
for
I think we're-
comments from the public,
No.
feels to me like right now, there's still enough question on this board that you might not have 3 votes to approve these plans, largely because of that front-facing garage. So we should ask for comments from the public, but you might want to consider adjourning, asking for an adjournment to just discuss it again with your client. Are there any comments from the public on this application?
Well, now there's a thought.
What are you thinking?
Is the pool already, are you putting in a new pool?
Yeah, there's no pool
Oh,
there.
so wouldn't there be wiggle room to put a garage, or turn, as Curtis noticed, the pool the other direction?
You could do that, although with the long axis of the pool going east-west, that provides, optimal lounging for, 3 or 4 lounge chairs along the long side of the pool to be facing south. At one point, we toyed with the idea of doing a detached garage in the back
Where I was
of the
headed.
property,
But-
and then having,
Incorporating the pool
an
equipment
arbor
inside.
off of that, which
Yeah.
would double as a backdrop to the
Nice.
pool.
Yeah.
Speaking
So,
very, yeah.
that was actually, if anybody saw the other plans, that was what was in
Where are those
there.
plans? Let's see those plans.
I
They
picked
took
them
them
up.
away. Nothing in the
So I
file.
think, I hear the board's concerns. I think that.
The entire backyard is proposed.
The client, yeah. But I
So
think
you're
the-
basically working on a clean slate
Yeah. Oh,
to be able to be creative, to place features based on the compliance and all your applicants' needs in a manner that they'll supply everything they're looking for, but still being able to provide the aesthetics that we're looking for that community.
If we were able to provide you with side-facing garage doors, would that eliminate really any other concern?
Yeah.
In this
Probably
design as
would.
it's proposed?
Depending,
Yeah.
depending on how you can configure it, but pretty much yes.
If access is really down to the minute, I would just throw out that, and this might sound a little odd, but you could do one garage bay on the north side of the property, coming in where you have a little more room, and propose a detached garage / pool house or something in the
Right.
back, if you need to cover 2 cars. But if you, I think your comment is right. If you came back here with something where those garage doors are facing the front, it sounds like you've got good support from
Yeah,
this board.
I think that's true.
So the Mini Cooper goes in the first bay, and the sedan goes in the second
That's
bay.
right. So are you asking us to adjourn? Will you have enough time? Actually, our next meeting's,
It sounds like the end of October now.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
so are you asking us for an adjournment?
Yeah, I mean, unless you would give me a provisional approval with the
No,
doors on the
we
side, I
can't
can
do
give you
that.
that.
We're
But
gonna have to see what it looks like.
shy of that.
If you left that other stuff in, maybe we could have, but it's too
So
late
I'm
now.
going to make a motion that we accept the applicant's request to adjourn to our October meeting.
Any public comment? Any public comment?
We asked, nobody.
Aye.
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 Next, CLT SH Properties LLC, 97 Prospect Street, construct 2-story single-family dwelling with attached garage. That's what it is. Twisting the thing made me
Oh,
think,
okay.
wait a minute, where's, you know,
Yeah.
is it built?
Yeah.
Garage door issue. Sure, about sitting for that last one.
The affidavit of posting and mailing?
Yes, thank you.
Just looking for those.
The mini sets as well? Sure.
Yes,
pass them on.
please.
Thank you.
And your name, sir?
My name is Daniel Gomes, and this is Peter Toscano, the owner of the property. I am the project manager for the Toscano residence. I'm from the firm Thomas D. Riley, located in 4 Bezel Lane, Smithtown, New York. Tonight we are proposing a new 2,625 square foot residence that contains 5 bedrooms and 4.5 bathrooms. The traditional looking home we are proposing will have a front covered porch with 8-inch round fiberglass HB&G columns with an attic base and Tuscan cap. The exterior siding will consist of a naturally treated cedar shingle with a 5.5-inch exposure. The windows will be the Anderson 400 series double hung with the mullion bars in the top sash only, with a basically a 3x3 on top. The trim color in the exterior
Yeah, it is.
and the interior will be white. The freeze boards and rake boards will also be treated with an AZEC trim. It's a maintenance-free item. We are also proposing a board and batten shutters for the front elevation. The board and batten shutters we are proposing, as well as the front door by Therma-Tru, will be a navy blue in color. The shutters, we are looking to propose a black shutter dog just for the aesthetic appeal. The roofing will be a design asphalt shingle by GAF or Certainty. This is the Weatherwood from Certainty, but the GAF aged oak is the same exact product. It's just a different brand.
Same size?
Same size, correct. It's nice. It's got the little shadow lines. Got a little architectural feature of the tabs. That's the roofing. The rear yard of the home will have a 14 by 34 in-ground swimming pool, as well as a 195 square foot rear bluestone patio. Be a nice area for the Toscanos to lounge. Our firm also handled the home across the street on 96 Prospect in the year 2014, and we think this home will create a nice tone as you enter through Prospect Street. The 2-seater style homes, I think, would be a nice value to the neighborhood. I think that's just the gist of the home, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
This is garage doors?
Correct. It's one garage door, yeah.
Is that an automatic garage door?
It'll be an overhead carriage style garage door.
Can we just do this?
Yeah. So I have the same issue, a generally good-looking design.
Survey.
The
Do
problem
we have the survey?
that I deal with is
There's
the
a survey in there. I think.
front-facing garage. The street is dominated by either no detached garages, no garages. I know you will tell me that the one across from you is in the rear. The one diagonally across is attached, but it's it's set as, it's sort of at an L to the house, so it doesn't, it's not one part of one whole facade is what I'm getting at. And then there's at 24 Prospect, there is another attached garage, but it's facing to the side. So my wish is that you could, as we did with the other folks, could configure a way where either you choose to put the garage in the rear, which has been done on these properties. You could be like one of your neighbors and not have a garage, but I'm not suggesting that. And to redesign the house to make it as such. I mean, I think if you were to take off the angle of the roof, I mean, to me, that's more appealing, rather than it jutting out like that, to have it in
Like
line.
clipping the gables?
Clipping it, no. I mean, I'll let some of my cohorts deal with that, but for me, the make or break issue is the front-facing garage.
Okay, yeah. I know on 96 Prospect, the house across the street has a nice design. The garage door is a nice, I think it's a mahogany. It's got the X-bracing.
You're talking about the one that's diagonal.
Correct.
Yeah, but again, if
is set back and it's a
if you
detached
look at
single
that,
garage.
it doesn't give the appearance of, it's not as massive. It looks like it's an addition, it captures the eye, you walk around to the rear of the property, but this is very much right in your face and, in my view, takes away from an otherwise nicely designed house. I'm sorry, you'll have to identify yourself and speak up.
Oh, okay.
And also, we need your name, please.
Sorry, I'm Christina Toscano. I'm the homeowner. I hope I'm not stepping on toes. This
No,
is my first
no,
meeting.
it's a public hearing.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I was wondering if it would make you feel any better. It's right next to the Kessler Gallery. There's like very heavy trees there. You really can't see a lot of, I understand now listening that you're generally kind of opposed, and I wish I had known that before we went through this. But it is very, heavy, kind of, shrouded with a lot of hedges. It won't really be seen very much from the street.
I appreciate it. Well, it's one of the things that you mentioned, I know is something that we've discussed about, which is the potential value to be had in work sessions, so these things can be discussed with an applicant before you go through the entire process of designing a structure to then have us sit here and it looks like we're being, from your standpoint, I've gone this far and now you're telling me. But it has been, as some of the other board members were saying, it's pretty much been a modus operandi and push on this board to avoid street-facing attached garages.
Would you be opposed to possibly a kickback with some sort of roof covering when you enter the garage? Would that be a little bit more, I guess, less?
Well, it really is about.
It's just the front facing.
Yeah.
And if you look on the street, the garages are behind the houses for the most part.
And if you think of the history of that neighborhood and the houses, they were modest houses, whether they be Victorian in design, and in the back there was a shed, a garage. Depending on the age of the house, it might have been a stall, for all we know. And to the extent that we can preserve that's what we'd like to do.
I think our holdup probably, and I think we would agree, the swimming pool might affect, just because we wanted a larger swimming pool. So that might affect our, detached garage, or possibly maybe, putting it towards the side. It is kind of a narrow lot, only at 75-foot width,
Again, they did, in the 1900s, they weren't envisioning pools. So they have, that's why the house, that street looks that way, and that's why it's charming. And I appreciate the fact that a lot of people want pools. Some properties can accommodate pools, others cannot.
It's fun.
So,
It's a choice.
just to, I'm looking at the site plan. Looking at the site plan, seeing that the section of the building that's most direct, has the most lengthy portion of the house is because of the first story living area and the pool being attached. I'm sorry, the garage being attached. In removing the attached garage, you push the living area back into the volume of the house, and therefore you get a little bit more room to be creative in the rear. It's a possibility.
Sure.
But they have to get a driveway by. They'd have to get a driveway by the,
We'd have to probably
it
go
needs to
for-
be, what is it, 5 foot? What's the setback on a driveway? No
5
setback?
feet, yeah.
No
5
no
feet.
setback at grade. but you need 13 feet of width or so.
Yeah, and where the house is positioned, again, we're talking a plain envelope.
It's
It's
not,
just-
it's
it
a
doesn't
lo-
exist.
it's- They knocked down the house, there's nothing there.
Well, what I'm saying is that you're starting from
God, Laura
scratch.
Rossi.
You can move that, there's room to move closer to, and I believe that's I'm sorry, I don't have my directional, but that's to the east. So there's room for the house to move a little more towards the east portion of the lot line, giving you the alley and a runway to get to a garage at the rear, if you chose to do so.
Okay. I'd have to rework the design, we'd have to, okay,
Well, I
Does the
mean,
board-
really, it's just taking that volume and shifting it forward.
sure.
And I think it actually will read better on the property because it would, you have that long portion of the property, if it's one story. Now you're incorporated into the volume of the property, you're separating some of the mass towards the rear. I think for a modest tone, I'm gonna say, I'm happy you didn't go and build something huge.
We
Which
tried to,
seems to
yeah.
be, you stay within the footprint, the volume of the house, there's no variances that are necessary except for the pool, I'm assuming?
No, the
Really?
pool actually, if
Conforms?
anything, the pool equipment, it was discussed.
Not
with
within
the-
our jurisdiction, but I'm just saying, well conforming, you're not asking for any.
Correct,
Any
yeah.
changes. Could you possibly, if you're moving, have a pyramid issue?
I'd have to, yeah, I mean, we are close. The one portion of the gable would need to be truncated, and it's a very minimal portion. We're only talking, I think, 6 to 8 inches, but I'd have to rework the design and see how it affects the sky plane exposure.
You might want to talk, the building department might be lenient on 6 to 8 inches. Right?
No,
Yeah.
they still need a variance, whether it's an inch or.
Well, we're not exceeding
or a
it, we're
yard.
just truncating the roof line, which.
No, I know, but,
sure.
no, whether it's an inch or a yard.
Sure,
If
yeah.
if it penetrates the pyramid line, it requires a zoning approval. There's no leeway.
I get your volume, your direction, but if there's a way to redesign that in a manner that it does so, I'm going to tell you, Prospect's a very, it's become a runway for a lot of people too, the road itself. So there are a lot of people that travel road going to different sections. It's almost like a bypass to get past some of the traffic in the summertime. So it's a highly used
Scare her.
I'm sorry?
Don't scare her.
Well, she knows. I mean, with that said,
Her part is better than the other side.
it is a lot better. But
West Prospect is the bad.
but we're really going to be sensitive to, especially specifically the design and softening the community, making it more traditional than.
Would the board like to rather see a detached car garage or an attached with a possibly side entrance? Would that,
You're not
think
gonna
you
get-
guys?
you're not gonna get
Okay,
side
sure.
entrance.
Yeah, I don't think you can get.
I don't
the
see
side-
that's happening. But
Okay.
I think you're
Just because of
gonna
the
be detached.
turn, the issue we discussed in the last
Yeah.
application.
All right,
Unless
so
you're going in the rear and you're coming
Are
in.
you asking us to adjourn to our?
Can I just make a comment? Sorry. Just want to say that I also appreciate the design of the building, but I'd also say that garage, in addition to issues we've been discussing, makes it a very wide building for the lot. I know you're within the setbacks, probably with the 40% rule, but it's a very broad facade on that first floor for a fairly small lot. So this may, I hear what Curtis is saying, you can pull the living space that's behind the garage forward, but I'd love to see if there's some way maybe to find another place for that living space and narrow the house that for the whole width of the garage. If there's a way to consider that, I'd love you to just throw that into your thinking.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I will.
So, any public comment?
Any public comment on 97 Prospect? Okay. So you're asking
And the
for
red house is
adjournment?
gone, huh?
It was a real eyesore. I'm kind of glad it's gone. It was originally part of the electric company, like that's what it was
Yes.
built with, so it's not, anything historic.
Not,
Are you
not
asking
at
to
all.
adjourn to our next meeting?
Just that it was the red house.
Motion to approve applicant's request to adjourn to our next meeting.
So moved.
Second, aye.
Aye.
In process, we submit, I guess, 3 sets of drawings to the building department, or?
Two.
Oh, 2, okay, all right.
And just to be clear, so if it's moved to the side, or do you want it detached?
I don't think you can, we can't tell you what to do.
Don't face the road.
That's all I want.
Yeah, pretty much.
I don't
But
think
you're
you
not
can
gonna get
it.
into the
It
side.
depends. He'll have to figure it out. We can't tell you.
Yeah.
Next,
All right, thank you very much.
public hearings historic. Number 1 is adjourned, Thomas and Meredith Joyce, until 11:25. Lifton, number 2, Lifton Green, 270 Ox Pasture, has been adjourned to 10/28/2019. Next, Carol Welsh, 340 Hill Street. Construct second-story addition. Please state your name.
Carol Welch. Okay, I was here the last I was here the last meeting, and I listened to your comments, and unfortunately, there's nothing that we can do to change this minor addition that we're doing to the house. I'm not quite sure which page you want me to be on. You want to see the elevations? This addition is only 303 square feet. It doesn't telescope because I'm actually still over the existing house. I'm not going beyond what's existing. I'm actually short of what's existing. And none of the neighbors complained about this. It's not visible anywhere from the street because the roof line is lower than what's presently there, and it's obscured by the carport that's there. Let me just go back to that back one. So this cannot, because it's lower than the other roof line, it cannot be seen from the road. You'd have to be 3/4 the way into my driveway to see it. So I'm, at this stage of the game, I'm asking for approval of this. There's nothing we can do to change it.
Well,
And it's doesn't really affect much of anything. Nobody can see it, nobody's objected to it.
well, we have some considerations, Mrs. Welsh. It has to do with the state of the building before we can move forward. We've looked at the previous applications that you put in. There have been 4 since you bought the house in 2007. The last one you withdrew, I believe. And there seem to be changes to the house that we can't really find a history in the paperwork for.
The changes were that in the original plan of the house in 2007, the architect had marked that it was going to be Wickham gray, which was not the color of the original house. The original house was white. I guess at some point I decided that all the 6 houses around me are all natural, so I didn't think leaving the house natural was...
That's the plans.
Oh, I'm sorry, didn't I handed the file over, so.
Here's the file.
But when you say leaving it natural, what does that mean?
I just left the shingles natural. They have no color. They're just red cedar shingles.
There's
The shingle siding on the house is not what was there before the work was begun. So it's it appears, and that's I think one of the questions, it appears that the siding on the house was replaced.
Yes, it was always going to be replaced.
In the discussion and in the minute,
We had to take the house, it was full of mold. We took it right down to the studs.
I don't recall seeing the word mold in the application, but what I reviewed, just what is of interest to the board and to the public is the exterior facade, and it seemed clear on the specifications and the plans that were submitted is that the exterior wall shingling was to remain.
It was
also
to
gonna be
remain
painted,
the same.
however. Remain the same?
It was cedar shingles, and it stayed cedar shingles.
No,
They were
that's
just new cedar shingles.
Well, that's what I think this board needs clarification on, because that's not what the plans say, you see. So I think what I'm wrestling with in terms of preservation objectives is quite a number of design modifications and additions were approved, which were built, and they have the effect of transforming what was a modest Victorian house into something much larger and much less understandable.
Not
And so-
larger. More cubic volume, the house is still,
I'm not going to debate that.
I know, that, but this has been a major debate. And the bottom line is, I have a monster house next to me that is in the historic village that conforms, I'm sure, in every way. But I have a modest little house.
Not anymore.
Yes.
And what I'm saying is that one defining detail of the house then, prior to 2007, which was one of the features that was mentioned in the nomination form for the historic district, was the decorative shingling on the front of the house.
That I did miss.
Out of the.
I'm sorry?
Do we have
That
the
I
order
did miss.
files?
And so,
The old
I think
ones?
what the board is saying
What happened?
is that, along with the other architectural changes that were proposed and approved, that is one that was effectively erased.
Yes.
Okay.
But it was done in error.
Okay. So, I'd just like to say, I think the plans that you put in right now are, first of all, very responsive to the concerns that were expressed in the previous application in terms of putting things on the back. I know you wanted an enclosed garage, but you've heard the comments on those, including tonight, so I appreciate the responsiveness. I'm going to contradict you, but not in a bad way. The house can be seen from Roscoe, but my feeling about it, it's a personal feeling, is the elongation of the second story, I don't mind at all. You're still well shorter than the house next to you, to the east of you, on the corner of Roscoe. And I think the treatment of the roof lines, as I imagine them going to the site and looking at it, you have a high roof line, it goes down for a little connector, you're coming back up a little bit. I think that, to my imagination, is going to provide a nice breakup of the forms and not make it too long a building. So I actually like the architecture of what you've approved. The concern, which I share with some of what people have said, is, and some of us have looked through the file, frankly, because your attorney during the last application had talked about the history of the house and said he was going to come back to talk about the history, because he said, and I think Zach agreed or said in a different way, that there have been some compromises to the historic nature of the house. And the three that stick out to me, and I just can't find, I don't think any of us have been able to find a basis for this, are the change of color from what was approved. We know it was approved from white to Wickham gray with blue shutters. But that change of color, the change in those dental shingles on the front, the 3 rows of dental shingles, and the removal of the shutters. And all of those were elements that helped preserve some of the historic look and feel of that lovely house that you bought. So to me, personally, that's the concern, is can we reestablish some or all of those elements to give back or recreate some of that historic look
I
and
can't
feel?
change, I've looked into it, I'm not going to change the color of the house. I like it natural, all six houses around me are all natural.
Yours isn't
And I-
natural. It's stained brown.
It's not it is not stained.
Well, I
That
don't know what it is, but it does not
all it is
weather the way.
sealed.
Fine, I don't want to argue with you, Mrs. Welch, but it does not, and I would also like to add that the paving in the front yard is also.
That has nothing to do with anything.
Well, yes, it does.
That has been there since
Fine.
2007. If you're going to deny me, then you know what's going to happen. So I need to do, you know what? You were the one who wanted me to put my,
That's fine. You can talk to me like that, but I don't really
Just ask,
appreciate it.
Would you be willing to consider recreating, I get the color thing. I just, the shingles, whether they're natural or not, they appear to be stained. They're not weathering the same as other shingles weather.
no,
for
because
some
it's
reason.
sealed.
Okay. Would you be willing to, as part of this application, to recreate the shingle detail on the front and put shutters back on the house?
Yeah, I can put shutters back on the house, and I can recreate the dental detail in the front. It's like 3 or 4 rows.
3 rows, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, that would make a difference to me, and as far as the plans go, I just have a hard time approving something with, there are provisions of the code very specifically that talk about work on any house, but specifically with respect to contributing structures. And that's the concern, is I have a concern about setting the precedent for approving something on a house where some changes have been made, and I'm not trying to be picky about it. I think some of those changes did change or reduce the historic look and feel. So that's my personal concern. And I don't know how the rest of the board feels.
I'll comment on your proposal.
Excuse me?
I'll comment on your proposal today. Proposal today, the second story addition. I think I find the design, I find the style in keeping with the volume and the language of the existing house. I think it's modest, I think it's small in terms of detail. I've seen larger additions being proposed. You have increased the volume of the house to a degree where I think it no longer becomes in keeping, or stretches the house to a point where it no longer holds its historical significance. So that's my comments on proposal for tonight. All that other stuff, I'm interested just in your proposal tonight.
Thank you.
Jeff?
I'm sorry, I was distracted. You're saying
We have
you are
had comments
good
from your
with that or
neighbor
not?
that are
I'm fine
not
with it.
in favor of this particular proposal, contrary to what you have said, but you could read the file yourself.
Well, why wasn't this stated last time?
I'm not here to, there is a file, because you left in a huff, I believe. I'm not here to broadcast we read the file. You are allowed to read the file.
I'm not sure this was in last time, to be honest.
Oh,
I didn't see this until
let me
tonight. This
see,
is the
is it
first time
dated?
I've seen this. It's just photographs, but there's no commentary on it.
Oh, yeah, there's a list.
Post-it notes.
There was a letter or a list. I don't know.
I don't think it was in before the last meeting, though, Susan.
Okay.
This is from the house that looms over mine.
Jeff, did you have
Regardless.
comments?
Yeah, so I'm somewhat a little bit more towards Rob, but, well, Curtis doesn't care about the other stuff. I just find
That's not what I
myself.
said.
What's that?
That's not what I said. It said that those are his.
Yes,
You,
that should be
there are
what it-
board members that have specific comments about activity that happened on the property.
Right.
It's not that I don't care, but
Okay,
I'm
okay,
commenting
thank you.
tonight specifically on what's being
Right.
proposed.
I'm sorry, I was a little free in my language. But to Curtis's and Rob's point, I think the addition is modest. But I have a problem. In fact, it's a bit of an absurdity to approve a proposal on a property that's in violation, whether it be by omission or commission, and it sounds like that there was a little bit of both. But there's a provision in here, as Rob was alluding to, is that it's the property owner's responsibility to restore or replicate the house as it was and as it was approved. So I can't, no matter whether I agree with the addition or not, I can't approve or cast a vote when the house is currently in violation. If the house was brought back to what had been previously approved, including the color, the same type of shingles and material and the dental, I don't see how, as a responsible board member, I can vote for it.
I could easily put plastic shutters back on the house, which is what was on there. I never said, it was never stated that I was going to keep the shingles that were on the house, had been painted so many times and sanded. There was no texture to them. It was always known that the shingles were going to be replaced.
Yet one of the file that I looked at, the board, I think the board minutes said, materials will be without change. I'll have to go back to my notes, but there was reference that the materials would be the same as they were. So-
Materials are the same.
But they're not. We don't have the dental molding. We
No,
don't have the-
and I've
we don't
admitted
have
to
the
that
shutters,
I missed that.
and we don't have the color that the board approved. So the three things put this in, again, whether it be by omission, commission, whether it be with good intentions or not, the fact is, it's a house other than what this board at
Okay.
various times approved, and I can't sit here and vote to approve something on something that is already in
Okay, I can
violation.
add the dental and I can put the shutters. The house color is not going to change.
What color would be the shutters? Because now we're into a different color. This would have to be part of your application.
I could put, there were black plastic shutters on the house. That's what was there.
That doesn't sound all that attractive.
No, does, you think? Black
your home.
Black plastic shutters that were narrower
It's
than
your
most.
home, it's on
Yeah.
Hill Street, it's in a
Yeah.
wonderful historic district,
Yeah.
and you
And I
obviously
keep, and I
want
keep the house.
to love your house. and-
I love my house.
Yeah.
So, Mrs. Walsh, in all fairness, I think we're all human beings. So when you make a statement like that, we can't help but think that there's some element of spite in it.
Oh, yes, there is an element of spite in it.
That's what that's what I suspected.
Yep.
And we all are committed to this village, and I know you are too. I'm not doubting that at all. If you want to come here before the board with an application to put on black shutters, we're just spinning a lot of wheels. And spite doesn't get us anywhere.
Believe me, I'm not putting plastic shutters on my house.
Well, then why say it then?
Well, if you want exactly what was there, that's what was there.
Well, I guess we need a proposal to restore it to an
So this is an opportunity,
yes.
actually, to make a few minor things right,
Okay.
because I agree with Rob, and I haven't discussed this, but I'm sorry if you mistook my comment about telescoping. That's kind of generally a problem with smallish houses on lots which can't go sideways and tend to go back. We'll see several every meeting.
We just
And it's
saw
how
that.
you do that that's important.
I
As
will
Rob
tell
pointed
you, I
out,
can't go back. My septic is there.
there you go. That can always be moved. So to do what you're suggesting, which is to go up a second story on less than the footprint of the porch that you were approved for in 2011, is certainly building less than you could or would or might or should or have. So the massing of that, I don't think, is the problem. I disagree to what, you can't see that. I mean, it doesn't take too much of a perception. Can't see it now because it's only one story. You'll see it on a second story. But I don't think that's a major impact. There was just this uncertainty about something gets approved, not all of it gets built, it gets approved, we move forward to another addition, and we're sort of meandering here without any clear direction and knowing what's going to happen. I would say that if you are able to bring back those, many people restore the siding on their house. If the shingle siding is to the point where it is beyond reasonable retention, restoring it, that is to say replicating what was there, is fine. That needs to be based on real documents. Luckily, photographs were taken. It very well documents the appearance. This can be reconstructed without a major overhaul of the front facade, and I think that's a reasonable approach to bringing back the sort of Victorian character and nature of the house, of which there isn't all that much visibly left. That was the only point I was trying to make over the last meeting.
No,
So-
the only thing that was salvageable in the house, and I was told that I had to keep it, were my columns, which were, I had a carpenter work on them and fix them, and they were repainted, and that's all, the front porch looks pretty much the same,
Pretty much.
except for the fact that I have a
It got a knee wall, and that didn't used to be there. But that was never mentioned, so we're not going to get bogged down in that. So why don't we just think in terms of getting a few of those
Okay.
details back and then moving forward with the...
The dental molding is not a
Language.
problem, or the dental detail, and the shutters
That's
aren't an
my
issue.
advice.
What kind of black shutters on the brown house?
They should be
I don't
louvered.
want black shutters. Yes, they would be louvered.
They should be louvered, and it doesn't really matter what color you paint them, because they're going to need another coat of paint.
What
before
color
you
is the
know.
front door currently?
White?
It's stained.
The front door is stained.
Front door is stained.
Consider stained. Shutters.
Should be painted like
White
trim.
would be a little garish, but, which is the trim. The trim
Yeah.
is white.
No, I
It should be the
would,
trim color, or something else
The trim
traditional.
color is white.
Dark green, black.
Oh,
Blue,
dark
but-
green.
Dark green could be.
I presently, on my house that I live in Connecticut, I have a really dark chocolate brown, which looks lovely on the house.
That's
But
fine.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's just that the windows look
Looks good
different when, now your neighbor has made objections in terms of screening on the sides, but the width of the driveway seems to preclude any planting, really.
screening, I have a fence. I put up a fence
Yeah, well.
that
that's-
wasn't there.
A fence is only 6 feet high, and now we're going
It's
up higher.
125 feet long.
Yes, but there, now you're adding a second story.
You know what,
Right, no, but this is the neighbor. Is this house even occupied, or is it?
No, it's
for sale.
vacant. He has
Yeah,
it, it's been
for
there
sale.
4 years.
So who's looking for screening?
The
No,
owner of the
the owner.
seller of the house.
Wait, show him this other.
Wait a minute.
This is really,
So they're looking for additional screening.
They're looking for additional screening.
How about I look for additional screening since I put up his fence?
He doesn't have an application before us.
Yeah, no, but,
That's the, the caveat, well, I should say, it's a gift and a curse. Once you.
I put up the fence, he can put up the trees.
I am not and will not ever be argumentative. What I'm just saying is that whenever
when
you
you look
propose.
down the
When you
driveway,
propose an application before this board, everything on your property becomes in question for.
right.
You're also proposing a second-story deck.
My feeling about that.
One second.
Sorry, yeah.
No, I'm not proposing a deck
but she's putting a second story on her.
Deck,
on the
this
deck
is what's left of the existing deck, so
Okay.
the second-story addition
gonna be
falls
closer.
short of
of the
the
full deck.
Is an
full
existing-
length of the.
That's my point. There's an existing deck there. There was a question about screening in the previous application, but that was going to potentially bring the property further east towards him. My feeling is, in this case, given that the enclosed space is just covering over a porch that's there already, with all due respect, I don't see any new condition that is requiring screening.
So my concern, can I have that?
Sure.
In your hand?
I'd like to know why he wasn't required to do more screening to block all of his house
Can you
from
get
mine.
this, Charlie?
Did you come to
Did you
that
come to the board meeting?
board meeting and ask for it? That's probably why. It's typically only made part of the conversation if a neighbor asks specifically.
But that being said, I think in terms of equity and fairness, I think, given the placement of Mrs. Welch's driveway and this large construction next door, that person isn't here, I can't tell him what to do, but I think it's a,
Well, I don't like the,
I think it's an unfair request by that neighbor, and I think it puts undue responsibility on Mrs. Welch to
Well-
provide screening for a house that they developed.
I am more
for sale.
concerned that when you look at her house from Hill Street, you see a lot of asphalt and a fence.
There's only 10 inches of dirt next to the fence.
How'd the driveway get so big? Was it always this big?
It was always that size.
And that's not looking at Hill Street.
We're
That's
going
inside
way
the
off topic
Yeah.
from the application and the proposal.
Well,
that's
sorry,
before
I would
us.
like to discuss it. How's that? I don't like when I look from Hill Street. I think that something is awry.
But
It
the
became that
the
size in the
driveway's
work you
there.
did in 2007, I think. In fairness, it used to be a straight-in gravel driveway,
Yeah.
straight down the
Oh, yeah,
east
but
side.
the asphalt was always there in the
The
proposal.
width of the asphalt?
With the what?
Width. The expansiveness of it.
Absolutely. That was all approved.
It's really
It didn't
wide.
seem to be what was in the file.
Looks more like a
The
little
state of the
bit,
file is not that great, maybe, if that's the case, because
Yeah, no,
what-
I didn't change that. I mean, the architect designed that, and he was here at the meetings when we first built the house.
I don't know who designed it. Did you change the side? All
No.
I know is when I look in there, I see a brown house with no shutters and white trim, and I see a lot of asphalt.
I could not have changed what the driveway was. That's what was proposed. That's exactly what was there.
Who proposed, what was proposed where?
In 2007.
In 2007, when we redid the house.
It's not in our,
Well, you
I
can
have to look
see,
at the
you have the
plans.
original plan.
Well, they didn't send them
The
tonight.
stamp
We have been
survey
looking at
doesn't
them.
actually indicate it. That's one of the issues, I think, that people, when they went back and looked at the file, it's not what the dated stamp survey shows in the file. Shows a driveway, the initial one shows a driveway just coming straight in as it was before, but paved. The next one shows a pull-in parking area just behind the front facade of the house for 2 cars or so to pull in off the driveway toward the house, but behind the front facade.
And I know that was always proposed because I had young kids at the time, and I knew I didn't want them backing out onto Hill Street. So I knew I had to have a place to turn around. And that portion of it and underneath the carport are all pavers in the asphalt.
I mean, the problem with the file is it doesn't show a stamped survey or site plan prior to the approval that shows what you're saying. I don't discount that it might have been discussed. It doesn't show up in the meetings.
I can
for-
drop off a plan. I have the original plans.
It doesn't show up, but it needs to be
looked in the minutes,
timestamped
too.
for the file. The minutes don't reflect it, and the timestamped surveys and site plans don't reflect it.
All right, so where are we here? Is there anyone from the public who wants to say anything? So now we need some kind of a proposal that shows that you would make those changes. Is that correct?
I'll agree to make them.
I'd like to close it for written decision, subject to receipt of plans that show those revisions, which would be the reintroduction of shutters to the house and the reestablishment of the 3 rows of dental shingles on the front of the house. But we could close the hearing for written decision at this point, subject to receipt of those. Is that right, Wayne?
Yeah, I think given that your next board meeting is not actually till October 28th, it would give time for the applicant to get the documents in, and then your council to review, and the board to review those plans and give input for
Okay.
written decision purposes.
Do you,
The alternative is to keep the hearing
Yeah.
open,
I'm-
keep the
No.
hearing open
No.
until you submit them, and in which
No.
case it will get
We have
dragged
the right to
into
reopen it
November.
if we
So-
have a
were going to ask a
problem.
question?
Well, that's what I was going to ask. In other words, I don't have to show up at another meeting, just give you the
Oh,
paperwork.
Decision
You would
is
be
just-
contacted.
Okay.
if
Do you
we-
have a copy of the photograph, or a good photograph that shows those shingles?
It's in the
dental
file.
shingles?
Yes,
'Cause-
no,
okay.
I have it.
Okay, because there is one in the file. we
No,
could
no, I
send
have
you.
it. I have the whole file from when we bought the house.
And you'll propose a shutter type and the color as part of that?
Yeah, I have to just look at the colors to see what'll look nice on with the natural shingles.
Obviously, what you like, but whatever is on the street or on similar houses. Yeah.
Yeah.
So from a practical
And can I
standpoint,
do movable shutters that have the nice little wrought iron, things on them?
Oh, you're referring to the
Yes.
dogs, so
No,
to speak?
it's
They're
kind
the
of
guys
like,
that hold them back.
yeah, the little S things that hold them back.
Well, I think they're probably good examples up and down Hill Street. Anything that's, yeah.
so just from a practical standard, Mrs. Welch should submit those plans within the next 2 weeks?
A couple weeks, yeah.
2 to
I mean, is that
3.
possible?
Oh, I'll tell the architect to do them tomorrow. I'll have them the next day.
All right, all right.
A
I'm
couple
just
of us
saying,
should review
just
them
not to leave it
to
to
be
the
able to
very
give
end.
input to Bo to say that
I
this
think the
seems to
point
us.
is, if you wait 4 weeks or so, it's not
Then
going to give
it's
the
too
board
late
enough
for him
time
to
to
write it.
digest them. So
Well-
the sooner you can get them in, the better.
Yeah, no, I'll tell the architect.
Good. So I'll make a proposal that we close the application
Motion.
of, I'm sorry?
Making a motion.
I'm making a making a motion that we close the application of Carol Welch at 340 Hill Street for written decision by council, subject to receipt of plans revised as discussed.
Second.
Aye.
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 Okay.
Okay, thank you.